It has been a weird season for the Dallas Cowboys on a variety of levels with everything that went on with the Micah Parsons trade weeks or days before the season began. But here's one thing besides the weirdness that's been wildly consistent for Dallas in 2025. Dak Prescott is playing at an MVP level. Now, you don't award the MVP after 5 games of the regular season. I completely understand that. But you have to acknowledge what Dak Prescott has done. The Cowboys took a lot of heat when they made Dak Prescott the highest paid player in football, $60 million per average annual salary, in his most recent contract negotiation. And you know what? So far this season, he's playing like it. And he put on another stellar performance against the New York Jets. And we'll get into the Jets in a second. I understand it was the Jets. But this is just a one-off, okay? You look at every game that Dak Prescott has played this year, he's been absolutely outstanding. Again today, managed the offense efficiently, 230-plus yards, 4 touchdown passes against no interceptions. Dak Prescott came into this game averaging just under 73% complete for the season. Why was that significant? Well, he was also the leading passer in terms of passing yards in the NFL. Going into Game 5, that was the best completion percentage by any quarterback who also had the most passing yards through the first 4 games. And that trend continued. Look, the Dallas Cowboys are a flawed team on a lot of levels. They have all kinds of issues. There's no question about it. Dak Prescott at this point is not one of them. He is literally leading this team. And let's understand on another level what he's doing. Dak Prescott went into this game without 4 of his 5 starting offensive linemen. 4 out of the 5. He also went into this game without 2 of his top 3 receivers, CeeDee Lamb and Turpin. Now, some would say Turpin's more of a gadget player and a kick returner, but he is a guy that Dak has relied on. So what does Dak do? He finds ways to step up. He finds ways to find receivers. And maybe the most interesting thing about Dak Prescott this season has been the fact that he's remained calm because there's been a lot of chaos, right? Go back to the first game of the season where we had Spitgate right before the first snap, which allowed Jalen Carter to be suspended for that game. Dak kept his cool. And Dak was very solid in that game, and he's built on that in every single game since they've played. I have no idea how the rest of the season is going to go for the Cowboys, but right now, Dak Prescott is the reason they have what they have. Their defense is still somewhat abysmal. I get it, they look better against the Jets. Again, it's the Jets. And just to put that in perspective, how bad the Jets have been this season, they've played 5 games. They don't have a single takeaway. Why is that significant? Well, here's why. The NFL has been tracking takeaways or turnovers since 1933. 1933. The 2025 New York Jets are the first team since 1933, when the NFL started tracking this shit, to go 5 games without a single takeaway. So for any data that we have, you can make the argument that the Jets are the first team in NFL history to go 5 games without a takeaway. And it was imperative for a Dallas Cowboys team that came into this game with the number 1 ranked offense and the 32nd ranked defense for Dak to be judicious with the ball. And he was just that. And let's be honest about something else, okay? It's not like the Cowboys have an overpowering running game. They have a functional, to some degree, running game. They don't have a huge running game. They don't do a million things right. They don't do all of these things sort of significantly better than anybody else, which means the burden relies on Dak. The burden relies on Dak in a huge way. And if you look at what happened on Sunday, they had 180 yards rushing. Really, really good. That helped Dak out because he didn't have to throw as much. Again, only 18 to 29 for 237 yards, 4 touchdowns, but not a single interception. So the idea that Dak can lead this Cowboys team is absolutely valid at this point. In fact, you can make the argument that he's not only leading the team, but he's carrying the team. And then the question becomes, what team is he carrying? Because we've seen what's happened with this Cowboys defense, right? We saw Caleb Williams shred them in Caleb's best performance in the Cowboys' loss to the Bears. We saw the Giants with Russell Wilson. The Giants with Russell Wilson put up 37 points and take them to overtime in the Cowboys home opener. And then we saw what happened last week on Sunday night. Green Bay put up 40 points on this Dallas Cowboys defense. So for the Cowboys to do anything this season and potentially sneak into the playoffs, it's going to be all on Dak Prescott. It's going to be all on Dak Prescott. And because the defense is so bad and Dak is so good, it just magnifies what we're seeing from the defensive side of the football. And I know Cowboys fans don't want to hear about this, but it's the truth, okay? We don't do opinions here. We don't do arguments. We don't do feelings. Maybe if the Cowboys had found a way to keep Micah Parsons, then this Cowboys defense would have not gone into this game against the Jets 32nd out of 32 teams, and maybe we'd have a little more balance. Now, you like what the Cowboys did against the Jets. Again, it's the Jets who are winless on the season and haven't created a single turnover all season long. So you want that defense to play better against a team like that. The construct of the Cowboys is still a huge problem. But Dak Prescott is not their issue. Dak Prescott is playing great. Again, no CeeDee Lamb, no Turpin, and missing 4 out of your 5 starting offensive linemen. You know, you look at what the Ravens are doing, and we'll get to that in a minute. The Ravens are an epic disaster. Well, they've had so many injuries. You know, you could make that same argument for Dallas, but they found a way to get it done. And again, I said this before the season began. I have no idea what kind of coach Brian Schottenheimer is going to be. Literally no idea whatsoever. I do respect Brian, and I've told this story before. When I was working back on NFL Live and he was an assistant coach with the Jets, he came up on one of his off days and he just sat with us and watched us go through the entire process of how we put the show together, from the production meeting in the morning through the entire afternoon and then putting the show on the air. Brian was interested in how we put together our process, and he wanted to understand that when he saw what we did and how we talked about the team, the Jets, that he was coaching for at the time. I respected that. I respect anybody that puts in the research, that puts in the time and puts in the work, instead of coming up with an idea or an opinion based on something that is struck at you in the moment, okay? So I don't know how good Brian Schottenheimer can be as a head coach, but I do know this. He knows what he has in Rain Dakota Prescott, which is Dak's full name, by the way. And Dak is playing really, really well. Look, and we need to be clear about this. No one is suggesting that Dak Prescott is the best quarterback in football. That would be preposterous when you have Patrick Mahomes, when you have a Josh Allen, when you have a 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers who's playing pretty well. When they're healthy, Lamar Jackson, obviously, and Joe Burrow are also very, very good. Matthew Stafford, despite what happened Thursday night, is playing at a very, very high level. But right now, Dak Prescott is playing better than all of those guys. How long he can keep this up? That's a great question. But through 5 games, you have to acknowledge what Dak Prescott is doing. He's the reason that Cowboys are in this thing. He's the reason the Cowboys are not under 500. He's the reason they're 2-2-1. He's the reason suddenly, in a division where the Eagles finally have a loss, the Giants are going nowhere, that they have an opportunity to be something in this division. We still haven't seen much out of the Commanders this season, as they've played a few games without Jaden Daniels, and they're sort of getting their sauce back. But you look at the schedule ahead for the Dallas Cowboys, okay? They've got the Carolina Panthers coming up next week, who rallied from 17 down to take care of the Miami Dolphins at home this past week. Not sure Carolina is scaring anybody. Bryce Young played a lot better in the second half than he did in the first half. And then they've got the Commanders, and then they've got Denver, and then they've got Arizona, very up and down team. Then they've got the Raiders, who are terrible at the moment. Then they have Philadelphia in Dallas, and then they have the Lions. Then they have Minnesota, and they have the Chargers, and then they finish up with Washington and the Giants to finish up their season. So if they can get through, they also have the Chiefs in there. That should be fun. That, by the way, that game between the Cowboys and the Chiefs might be the highest rated regular season game in the history of the NFL. And I don't care whether you like the Cowboys or whether you hate the Cowboys or whether you like the Chiefs or whether you hate the Chiefs. That's irrelevant. The bottom line is Chiefs games bring more eyeballs than any other team except for the Dallas Cowboys. And you put those two together with Patrick Mahomes, we assume at that time, rounding into shape, and if the Cowboys are still in it, or even if the Cowboys aren't still in it, because people hate watch the Cowboys, that game has a chance to be the highest rated regular season game in NFL history. And if the Cowboys are in it that late in the season, because that game is Thanksgiving weekend, that is going to be an epic one because of what Dak Prescott is doing. Look, The Cowboys probably overpaid Dak Prescott because they worked this thing backwards, because that's what Jerry and the team does all the time. And Jerry's still out there trying to spin the fact that the defense is improving. It did improve against the Jets, but it was the Jets. The only reason the Cowboys are doing anything right now is because Dak Prescott is playing as well or better at the position of quarterback than anybody else in football through the first 5 games. No one is saying it's going to continue through 15, 16, or 17 games. We have no idea. But you get your offensive lineman back, you get CeeDee Lamb back, you get Turpin back, and that defense gets a little bit better and better. Suddenly the Cowboys are very interesting. And if they're around in November and December heading into a playoff push, it's because of one reason and one reason only. And it ain't the owner, and it ain't the general manager. It's because Dak Prescott has said, guys, we've been dealt a shitty hand. Hop on. I'm driving this bus. I'll take us where we need to go until we can figure everything else out. Look at the numbers. We're not looking at feelings. We're not looking at emotions. We're not looking for an argument. Dak is playing as well or better than any other quarterback in football through the first 5 games. And that is straight facts, homie.